"Get out of my restaurant, you liar!" the manager screamed, throwing Maya's apron into the mud. She was 23, broke, and homeless, all because she dared to speak to the richest man in the city. Robert Sterling had everything: billions of dollars, a young fiancé, and a media empire. But he also had a secret, a crimson birthmark on his arm that he hid from the world. When Maya saw it, she whispered 6 words that would shatter his empire. "Sir, my father had that mark." She didn't know that speaking those words would put a target on her back. What happens when a poor waitress holds the key to a billionaire's darkest tragedy? Watch until the end, because the DNA test results are not what you think. The rain in Seattle didn't just fall, it hammered against the cracked windows of the Rusty Spoon, a diner that smelled permanently of old fryer grease and despair. Maya wiped down table 4 for the 3rd time, her hands red and chapped. It was 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, usually the lull before the late lunch rush, but today the air felt heavy. "Maya, order up on 6. Stop dreaming and move your feet." The voice belonged to Stan, the owner of the Rusty Spoon. Stan was a man who believed that if you weren't sweating, you weren't working. He underpaid everyone, skimmed tips, and had a temper that could curdle milk. "Coming, Stan," Maya said, her voice soft. She brushed a stray lock of dark hair behind her ear. At 23, Maya looked older than her years. Her eyes, a striking shade of amber, held a fatigue that came from working double shifts 7 days a week just to pay for her grandmother's nursing home bills. The diner door chimed, admitting a gust of cold wind and 2 figures that looked entirely out of place. The first was a woman in her 30s, draped in a white trench coat that probably cost more than the diner itself. She had sharp features, platinum blonde hair styled into a severe bob, and eyes that scanned the room with unmasked disgust. This was Beatrice Sterling. Behind her walked a man who commanded silence without saying a word. Robert Sterling, the tech mogul, the man whose face was on the cover of Forbes and Time. He was in his early 60s, with silver hair and a tailored charcoal suit, but his posture was slumped, his eyes distant. He looked like a man who owned the world, but had nothing to live for. The diner went quiet. Even Stan froze in the kitchen window. Billionaires didn't eat at the Rusty Spoon. "Robert, please," Beatrice hissed, her voice carrying through the silence. "This place is filthy. Let's just go to the Ritz." "I want a burger, Beatrice," Robert said, his voice gravelly and tired. "A real burger, like the ones I used to eat before everything changed." He walked to a booth in the back, the one Maya had just cleaned. Beatrice followed, looking as if she were walking through a minefield of germs. Maya took a deep breath. "Just customers," she told herself. "Just serve them, get the tip, and pay the electric bill." She grabbed her notepad and approached the table. "Welcome to the Rusty Spoon. Can I get you started with some coffee?" Robert looked up. For a second, his eyes widened as he looked at Maya's face. He blinked, shaking his head slightly, as if clearing a fog. "Yes, black, and a cheeseburger, rare." "Diet Coke, no ice, and wipe this table again," Beatrice snapped, running a manicured finger over the formica. "It's sticky." "Right away, Mum," Maya said, fighting the urge to roll her eyes. She hurried to the counter, pouring the steaming coffee. Her hands were shaking. She needed this tip. Her grandmother, Nana Rose, had called this morning. They needed another $500 for medication by Friday, or she'd be moved to a state facility. Maya returned to the table with the tray. As she set the coffee down, a loud crash of thunder shook the building. Startled, Beatrice jerked her arm, knocking into Maya's hand. The pot of hot coffee tipped. "No!" Maya gasped. She managed to twist her wrist, splashing the scalding liquid away from Beatrice's white coat. But in doing so, the coffee poured directly onto Robert Sterling's left arm. Robert hissed in pain, instinctively jerking back and rolling up his soaked sleeve. "You idiot!" Beatrice shrieked, standing up. "You burned him! You stupid, clumsy girl! I'm so sorry! I'm so sorry!" Maya grabbed napkins, panicking. Robert was grimacing, wiping the coffee away with a napkin. His sleeve was rolled up to his elbow, and there, on the inside of his forearm, the skin was revealed. Maya froze. The world seemed to stop spinning. The sounds of the diner faded into a dull roar. There, on the billionaire's arm, was a birthmark. It wasn't a normal spot. It was a deep, port wine stain, shaped exactly like a jagged lightning bolt, running from his wrist halfway to his elbow. It was distinctive, unique, impossible to mistake. Maya's breath hitched. She dropped the napkins. Her eyes locked onto the mark. "Sir," she whispered, her voice trembling. Beatrice was screaming at Stan now. "Fire her! I want her fired immediately. She attacked my fiancé." Robert looked up at Maya, irritation in his eyes. "Miss, please, just step back." "Sir," Maya said again, louder this time. She pointed a shaking finger at his arm. "That mark." Robert looked down at his arm. "It's a birthmark." "What about it?" Maya felt tears pricking her eyes. Memories flooded her brain. Memories of a man laughing, lifting her up, the smell of sawdust and pine, and that specific mark on a strong arm. "Hi, sir," Maya choked out, the words tumbling over each other. My father had the same birthmark." The diner went dead silent. Robert Sterling went rigid. The irritation vanished from his face, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock. He stared at the girl, really looked at her, taking in the amber eyes, the shape of her jaw, the way she held her hands. "What did you say?" Robert whispered. Beatrice stepped between them, her face twisted in a snarl. "Oh, please. This is the oldest trick in the book." "Oh, you look like my daddy." "What do you want? Money? A settlement for the trauma of burning him?" "No," Maya pleaded, ignoring the woman. She looked only at Robert. "Sir, my father, Arthur. He disappeared when I was 3. But I have photos. I remember that mark. It's shaped like a lightning bolt. He used to tell me it was because he was struck by magic." Robert stood up slowly. His face was pale. "Arthur," he murmured. "My middle name is Arthur." "Robert, stop it." Beatrice grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his suit jacket. "She is a con artist. Look at her. She's a waitress in a dump. She probably Googled you and found out about the mark." "Nobody knows about this mark," Robert said, his voice low. "I haven't worn short sleeves in public in 20 years. Not since—" He trailed off, looking at Maya with a hunger that was terrifying. "What is your name?" "Maya," she said. "Maya Bennett." "Bennett." Robert frowned. That's enough." Stan, the manager, barreled over. He was red-faced and sweating. He grabbed Maya by the shoulder and shoved her back. "Mr. Sterling, I am so sorry. This girl is unstable. She's fired. Right now. Maya, get your stuff and get out." "No, wait," Robert said, raising a hand. "We don't want any trouble, sir," Stan groveled. "She's gone. Go on, Maya. Leave before I call the cops for assault." "But he needs to know," Maya cried, desperate. "My father—" "Get out!" Beatrice screamed. "Or I will have this entire place shut down by health inspectors within the hour." Stan turned on Maya, his eyes bulging. "You heard the lady. Out!" Maya looked at Robert one last time. He was paralyzed, caught between the screaming of his fiancée and the ghost of a memory. He didn't move to stop them. He just stared at her, confused and shaken. Heartbroken, Maya untied her apron and threw it on the counter. She grabbed her coat and ran out into the rain, the bell above the door jingling a cruel goodbye. She stood in the alleyway, the rain soaking her thin uniform. She was fired. She had no money for Nana Rose, and the man who might be the key to her past, the man who bore her father's mark, had let her be thrown out like garbage. Inside the diner, Robert sat back down heavily. "Let's go, Robert," Beatrice said, smoothing her coat. "I lost my appetite." "Beatrice," Robert said, his voice steel. "Did you see her eyes? They were brown, so what? They were amber, golden amber, just like Lily's." Beatrice froze. "Lily is dead, Robert. Your wife and daughter died in that fire 20 years ago. We buried them. Do not let a gold-digging waitress play with your head." Robert didn't answer. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Under the table, he sent a text message to a number saved simply as Fixer. Find out everything about a waitress named Maya Bennett. The Rusty Spoon Diner, immediately. 3 days later, Maya was sitting on the floor of her tiny studio apartment, surrounded by eviction notices. She had applied to 5 restaurants, but Stan had blacklisted her. When potential employers called for a reference, he told them she was a thief and violent. Her phone rang. It was the nursing home. "Miss Bennett?" The nurse's voice was sympathetic, but firm. "We haven't received the payment for this month. If we don't have it by tomorrow, we have to initiate the transfer process." "Please," Maya begged, tears streaming down her face. "I have the money coming. Just 2 more days." "I'm sorry, Maya. Tomorrow at noon." Maya ended the call and buried her face in her hands. She had one option left. She stood up, went to her closet, and pulled out a small, battered shoebox. Inside was a collection of old Polaroids and a silver pocket watch. She picked up a photo. It was grainy, taken in the late 90s. A tall man with a kind smile was holding a toddler. His sleeves were rolled up. The lightning bolt mark was clearly visible. "Who were you, Dad?" she whispered. "And why did you leave us?" A heavy knock on her door made her jump. Maya wiped her eyes and walked to the door, keeping the chain on. "Who is it?" "Miss Bennett? My name is Sebastian Cole. I'm a private investigator." Maya's heart hammered. "I don't have any money for bills, if you're a debt collector." "I'm not here for money. I'm here on behalf of Robert Sterling." Maya unchained the door and opened it. A man in a trench coat stood there, holding a manila envelope. He looked tired but professional. "Mr. Sterling wants to speak with you," Sebastian said. "He's waiting in the car." Maya looked down the street. The black Rolls-Royce was parked by the fire hydrant, gleaming incongruously against the cracked pavement of her neighborhood. "Why?" Maya asked. "He let his fiancée throw me out." "He's a man who processes things slowly," Sebastian said. "But he hasn't slept in 3 days. He wants to see the proof." Maya grabbed the shoebox. "I'm coming." She walked to the car. The window rolled down. Robert Sterling was inside, looking even worse than he had at the diner. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Get in," he said softly. Maya climbed into the leather interior. It smelled of expensive cologne and old leather. She didn't say a word. She just opened the shoebox and handed him the Polaroid. Robert took the photo with trembling hands. He put on his reading glasses. He stared at the image of the man holding the baby. He traced the face of the man, a younger version of himself, perhaps, but with a beard and rougher clothes. Then he looked at the arm in the photo. He let out a sound that was half sob, half gasp. "This watch," Maya said, holding up the silver pocket watch. "It was his. It has an inscription." Robert took the watch. He popped the back open. Inside, engraved in elegant cursive, were the words, "To R.S., my North Star." Love, Eleanor. Robert closed his eyes, tears squeezing out. Eleanor, he whispered. My first wife. My only love. He looked at Maya. This man, Arthur. That was the name I used when I went undercover. Years ago, before the company got big, I used to vanish for months to work manual labor, to keep myself grounded. I met a woman. My mother, Maya said. Sarah Bennett. Sarah. Robert shook his head. No, Eleanor was my wife. But, wait. He looked confused. The fire. The police said Eleanor and my daughter Lily died in the cabin fire. They found remains. My mother wasn't named Eleanor, Maya said, confused. Her name was Sarah. She told me my father died in a car crash when I was 3, but she never had a death certificate. She just said he was gone. Robert's mind was racing. If you are my daughter, if you are Lily, then the bodies in the fire, they were faked. He looked at Maya, the amber eyes, the shape of her nose. It was undeniable. We need a DNA test, Robert said, his voice hardening. Right now. And if I am your daughter? Maya asked, her voice small. Robert reached out and covered her hand with his. His hand was warm. Then, my dear, you are the heiress to the Sterling Empire, and someone stole 20 years of our lives. The Sterling estate was a fortress of glass and steel overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Maya felt like an intruder as she walked through the massive front doors, flanked by Robert and Sebastian. But the moment they stepped into the foyer, Beatrice descended the grand staircase. She wasn't alone. A young man, roughly 25, walked behind her. This was Chad, Beatrice's son from a previous marriage. He was handsome in a slimy way, wearing a polo shirt that cost more than Maya's annual salary. Robert? Beatrice's smile was tight. What is she doing here? I thought we discussed this. We are doing a DNA test, Beatrice, Robert said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Dr. Aris is on his way. Chad laughed, a cruel barking sound. Seriously, Rob? You're going to let this street rat spit in a tube? She's playing you. Shut up, Chad, Robert snapped. If she is my daughter, she is your stepsister. Show some respect. Beatrice's eyes narrowed into slits. She looked at Maya with a hatred so intense it felt physical. This is ridiculous. You're senile, Robert. You're grieving a ghost, and you've let this grifter convince you she's resurrected. We'll see, Robert said. Dr. Aris arrived 10 minutes later. He was a small, nervous man who had been the Sterling family doctor for decades. He swabbed Robert's cheek, then Maya's. I will rush this to the private lab, Dr. Aris said. Results in 24 hours. Thank you, Doctor, Robert said. Maya will be staying in the East Wing guest suite until then. Absolutely not, Beatrice shrieked. My house, Beatrice, Robert roared, his patience finally snapping. My rules. Maya stays. Beatrice went silent. She took a deep breath, smoothed her dress, and smiled. It was a terrifying transformation. Fine. If it makes you happy, Robert, we'll welcome her. She turned to Maya. I hope you're comfortable, dear. The East Wing can be drafty. As Maya was led away by a maid, she glanced back. Beatrice and Chad were standing at the bottom of the stairs, watching her. Beatrice pulled out her phone and began typing furiously. Chad was staring at Maya's back with a look that wasn't just hatred, it was calculation. That night, Maya lay in a bed that was softer than clouds, but she couldn't sleep. The silence of the mansion was oppressive. Around 2:00 a.m., she heard a soft click. Her door handle turned. Maya sat up, pulling the duvet to her chin. Hello? The door didn't open, but she heard whispering on the other side. Make sure the sample is switched. I don't care how much it costs. It was Beatrice's voice. Dr. Aris is terrified of you, Mum. "He'll do it," Chad whispered back. "But what if Robert finds out? Robert is an old fool. He'll believe the paper, and then we throw her out. Or better yet, we make sure she disappears like the first time." Maya's blood ran cold. Like the first time? She realized then that this wasn't just about money. Her father hadn't just lost her. Someone had taken her. Someone had tried to kill her and her mother 20 years ago, and that someone was standing right outside her door. Maya looked around the room frantically. She needed to record them. She grabbed her phone, hitting the voice memo app, and crept toward the door in her bare feet. She pressed the phone against the crack under the door. "When the results come back negative tomorrow," Beatrice hissed, "Robert will be crushed. He'll be vulnerable. That's when you get him to sign the power of attorney, Chad. Once we have control of the company, we can put him in a home and be done with this. And the girl? If she makes a fuss, accidents happen. The roads are slippery in the rain." Footsteps retreated down the hall. Maya slumped against the door, clutching her phone. She had the recording. But who could she trust? If Dr. Orris was compromised, the DNA test would be a lie. Robert would kick her out, and she'd be defenseless. She needed an ally. She remembered the PI, Sebastian. He had seemed honest. But did he work for Robert, or did Beatrice pay him too? She looked at the window. It was a 2-story drop to the garden. She had to get out. She had to save her father. But she couldn't do it from inside the cage. Maya opened the window. The rain was still pouring. "Okay, Nana," she whispered to the empty room. "Time to be brave." The ivy trellis clinging to the side of the Sterling mansion was slippery with rain, the leaves slick as oil. Maya's bare feet found purchase on the rough stone, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Every creak of the vines sounded like a gunshot in the silence of the night. She reached the ground, her knees buckling into the wet mulch. She didn't stop to breathe. She scrambled over the garden wall, tearing her pajama pants on a rose bush, and sprinted toward the main road. The cold asphalt bit into her feet, but the fear of what Beatrice and Chad were capable of numbed the pain. She reached a gas station a mile down the road, shivering violently. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly pale glow on her soaked skin. She asked the sleepy attendant for the phone and dialed the number on the business card Sebastian had given her. "Cole Investigations," a groggy voice answered. "Sebastian," Maya chattered, her teeth clacking together. "It's Maya. They're going to fake the test. They're going to hurt him." 20 minutes later, Sebastian's sedan screeched into the lot. He didn't ask questions. He wrapped a heavy wool blanket around her and blasted the heat. "Play it for me," he said, his eyes scanning the darkness for pursuing headlights. Maya played the recording on her phone. Beatrice's voice, cold and reptilian, filled the car. "Make sure the sample is switched. Accidents happen." Sebastian's knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. "That witch. She's not just greedy, she's a sociopath." "We have to go back," Maya said. "We have to tell Robert." "We can't," Sebastian said grimly. "Not yet. If we walk in there now with just a phone recording, she'll claim it's AI-generated or edited. She has the best lawyers money can buy. And if Dr. Arris fakes the medical report, Robert will believe the science over a grainy audio clip. We need undeniable proof, and we need to keep you safe until we have it." The next morning at the Sterling mansion, the atmosphere was funereal. Robert sat in his study, staring at the wall. He hadn't slept. Beatrice stood by the window, wearing a black dress that made her look like a mourning widow before there was even a death. Chad sat on the leather sofa, scrolling on his phone, looking bored. Dr. Arris entered, clutching a clipboard. He looked pale, his eyes darting toward Beatrice, who gave him a microscopic nod. "The results, Doctor?" Robert asked, his voice a ragged whisper. "Mr. Sterling," Dr. Arris cleared his throat, "I ran the samples 3 times. I wanted to be certain. And? The markers. They don't match," Dr. Arris lied, handing the clipboard to Robert. "The young woman, Maya Bennett, is not your daughter. The probability of relation is 0%. Robert took the paper. He read the clinical code words. 0.0% probability of paternity. The hope that had ignited in his soul over the last 24 hours was extinguished instantly. It was a physical blow. He slumped forward, clutching his chest, a low moan escaping his lips. "I knew it," Beatrice sighed, walking over and placing a hand on his shoulder, a gesture that looked comforting but was actually a restraint. "Oh, Robert, I told you. She was a con artist. She researched the birthmark. She played on your grief." "Where is she?" Robert whispered. "I want to ask her why she would be so cruel." "She's gone, Robert," Chad chimed in, standing up. "Maid said her room was empty this morning. She probably knew the jig was up and ran off with the jewelry on the nightstand." "She didn't take anything," Robert snapped, though his voice lacked its usual fire. "She took your dignity, Robert," Beatrice said softly. "But don't worry. We're here. We aren't going anywhere." Robert looked at the two of them. His family. He felt a sudden, crushing exhaustion. His vision blurred. The room began to spin. "I don't feel well," Robert stammered. "It's the stress," Beatrice said, her eyes gleaming. "Here, Dr. Arris prescribed a sedative to help you sleep. Just rest, darling. Chad and I will handle the company business for a few days." Robert drank the water Beatrice offered. Within minutes, the world faded to black. 3 days passed. Maya stayed hidden in Sebastian's safe house, a small cabin near the shipping docks. It smelled of sea salt and old paper. "Robert hasn't been seen in public," Sebastian said, pacing the floorboards on the 3rd evening. "Stocks in Sterling Corp are dropping. Beatrice released a statement saying he's suffering from severe exhaustion and early-onset dementia. She's paving the way to take power of attorney." "He doesn't have dementia," Maya cried. "He was sharp. Sad but sharp." "It's the meds," Sebastian said. "I have a contact in the house, one of the cleaning staff. She says they are keeping him heavily sedated. He's barely conscious." Maya felt a surge of rage. "They are killing him slowly." "We need to break the narrative," Sebastian said. He pinned a photo of the burnt cabin from 20 years ago onto a corkboard. "The official story is that your mother, Eleanor, and baby Lily died in this fire. The fire was blamed on a faulty gas line." "But I'm alive," Maya said. "And my mom. She told me her name was Diana. She said she was a nanny." Sebastian froze. He turned slowly. "Diana? You're sure she said Diana?" "Yes. Diana Miller. That was the name on her old driver's license I found after she died." Sebastian rushed to his laptop. His fingers flew across the keyboard. "Diana Miller here." He pulled up an old employee manifest for the Sterling household from 20 years ago. "Diana Miller wasn't just a nanny," Sebastian said, his voice thick with realization. "She was Eleanor's sister. Your aunt." Maya gasped. "My aunt?" "Listen to this," Sebastian read. "Eleanor Sterling had a sister who was estranged from the family because she refused to marry into wealth. She worked as the head of staff under a pseudonym to be close to her sister. When the fire happened, the police found 2 adult bodies and 1 infant body. But the dental records for the second adult were inconclusive." Sebastian spun around. Beatrice was Robert's executive assistant back then. She was obsessed with him. "The police report says the gas line was tampered with. but the evidence went missing before it could be filed. "Beatrice set the fire," Maya whispered, the horror dawning on her. "She tried to kill my mother and me to get to Robert." "And your Aunt Diana saved you," Sebastian finished. "She must have pulled you from the crib and run, leaving your mother behind. She knew if she came forward, Beatrice would finish the job. So she raised you in secret, always moving, always hiding." "That's why she hated having her picture taken," Maya said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "That's why we never stayed in one place for long. She was protecting me." "We have the motive," Sebastian said. "But we need the witness. The police report mentions a groundskeeper who called 911, a man named Thomas Thorne. He disappeared a week after the fire. Is he dead?" "No," Sebastian said, a grim smile touching his lips. "I found a credit card trail. He's living in a retirement community in Arizona under the name Arthur Pendleton. Beatrice has been paying his nursing home fees through a shell company for 20 years. Hush money." "We have to get him," Maya said. "I'm flying him in," Sebastian said. "My associates are picking him up now. If we can get him to talk, we can prove Beatrice is a murderer. But we're running out of time. The board of directors is meeting tomorrow night at the Sterling Gala. Beatrice plans to have Robert sign over the company there, in front of everyone, to legitimize the transfer." "Tomorrow night," Maya said, her jaw tightening. "Then we have to crash a party." The Sterling Gala was the event of the season. The grand ballroom of the downtown Seattle hotel was dripped in gold and crystals. Seattle's elite, tech giants, politicians and socialites mingled while drinking champagne that cost more than a car. At the center of it all was Beatrice. She wore a crimson gown that looked like spilled blood, diamonds dripping from her neck. Chad stood beside her, looking uncomfortable in a tuxedo, shaking hands with board members. "Where is Robert?" a board member asked. "The invitation said he would be making a special announcement." "He's resting in the green room," Beatrice cooed, her voice smooth as silk. "He's very frail, poor dear. But he insists on coming out to sign the succession papers. He knows it's time for Chad to take the helm." Backstage, in a dimly lit dressing room, Robert Sterling sat in a wheelchair. He was pale, his eyes glassy and unfocused. A nurse, one on Beatrice's payroll, had just administered another injection. "Just sign the papers, old man," Chad sneered, entering the room. "Then you can go back to sleep forever." Robert's hand trembled. "Maya," he mumbled. "Where is my daughter?" "She's dead, Robert," Chad shouted, leaning into his face. "She died 20 years ago. The girl was a fake. Now sign." Chad shoved a pen into Robert's weak hand. Meanwhile, at the service entrance of the hotel, a catering van pulled up. Sebastian sat in the driver's seat. In the back sat Maya and an elderly man in a wheelchair, Thomas Thorne, the groundskeeper. "Are you ready?" Sebastian asked. Maya adjusted the collar of her stolen catering uniform. She had pulled her hair back into a tight bun and wore thick-rimmed glasses. "I'm ready." "Security is tight," Sebastian warned. "I'll create a distraction at the front. You get Thomas to the stage." Maya nodded. She wheeled Thomas toward the service elevator. The old man was shaking. "I shouldn't be here," Thomas wheezed. "She'll kill me." "She can't hurt you anymore, Thomas," Maya said fiercely. "Not if we tell the truth. Do it for Eleanor. Do it for the baby you saw that night." Thomas closed his eyes and nodded. Maya pushed the cart into the ballroom. The noise was deafening. 100 conversations merged into a roar. She kept her head down, offering champagne flutes to guests, as she slowly maneuvered Thomas through the crowd toward the stage. Suddenly, the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the center of the stage. Beatrice walked to the microphone, beaming. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, Thank you for coming. Tonight is a historic night. My fiancé, Robert Sterling, has made a brave decision. Due to his declining health, he is stepping down as CEO of Sterling Corp. Gasps rippled through the room. He has chosen a successor, Beatrice continued. My son, Chad. The curtain behind her opened. Chad wheeled Robert out. The billionaire looked like a prop, his head lolling to the side. A massive contract sat on a table next to him. Sign it, Robert, Beatrice hissed away from the mic, her smile never wavering for the cameras. Robert lifted the pen. His hand shook violently. He looked out at the sea of blinding lights, confused and broken. Stop! The scream cut through the room like a knife. Maya shoved the catering cart aside and pushed Thomas's wheelchair into the spotlight. She ripped off her glasses and let her hair fall. Don't sign anything! Maya shouted. The room went silent. Beatrice froze. Chad looked like he'd seen a ghost. Security! Beatrice shrieked. Get this trash out of here. Two burly guards rushed toward Maya. Let her speak! Sebastian's voice boomed from the balcony. He was standing next to the lighting rig. Unless you want the police to hear the recording first. The guards hesitated. The board members murmured. Maya stepped onto the stage. She ignored Beatrice and walked straight to Robert. She knelt beside his wheelchair and took his cold hand. Robert, she said softly. Look at me. Robert blinked, fighting the fog of the drugs. He looked into her amber eyes. Maya? It's me, she said. I didn't run away. They chased me. And they lied about the DNA. Lies! Beatrice screamed, her composure cracking. She's a fraud. She's mentally unstable. I have proof, Maya said, turning to the crowd. She pointed to the old man in the wheelchair. Do you recognize him, Beatrice? Beatrice's face went white. She took a step back, nearly tripping over her gown. Thomas? Robert whispered, looking at his old groundskeeper. Thomas, you've been dead for 20 years. No, sir, Thomas said, his voice trembling but amplified by the silence of the room. She paid me. Beatrice paid me to leave. She paid me to say it was the gas line. Shut up! Chad lunged at the old man, but Sebastian, having rappelled down from the balcony, tackled him to the ground. The crowd screamed. Tell them, Thomas, Maya commanded. I saw her, Thomas cried out, tears running down his weathered face. I was in the garden. I saw Beatrice cut the gas line. I saw her lock the doors from the outside. She wanted them to burn Mr. Sterling. She wanted Mrs. Eleanor and the baby dead so she could have you. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. Cameras flashed wildly. You're lying, Beatrice screeched, looking around for an escape. He's senile. And the DNA test? Maya asked, pulling a document from her pocket, a fresh report Sebastian had commissioned from an independent lab using a hair sample Robert had left in the car days ago. This is from the State Forensic Lab. 99.9% match. I am Lily Sterling. She handed the paper to the nearest board member, a stern woman named Mrs. Higgins. Mrs. Higgins adjusted her glasses, read it, and looked at Beatrice with pure disgust. Call the police, Mrs. Higgins said. Beatrice realized it was over. The mask fell. Her face twisted into a snarl of pure malice. She grabbed a steak knife from the banquet table and lunged, not at Maya, but at Robert. If I can't have the money, no one can. No, Maya screamed. She threw herself in front of her father. The blade flashed. Maya felt a sharp, searing pain in her shoulder. She collapsed onto Robert's lap. Maya, Robert screamed, the shock adrenaline finally burning through the sedatives. He grabbed Beatrice's wrist with a strength he hadn't possessed in years, twisting it until the knife clattered to the floor. Beatrice shrieked as security guards swarmed her, pinning her to the ground. Chad was already in handcuffs, weeping like a child. Robert ignored them. He held Maya, pressing his hand against her bleeding shoulder. The crimson blood stained his tuxedo, matching the crimson birthmark on his arm. "Lily," he sobbed. "My Lily. I've got you. I've got you." Maya looked up at him, her vision swimming. "I told you, Dad. The mark is magic." Then darkness took her. The ambulance ride was a blur of red lights and the deafening wail of sirens. Robert Sterling, a man who had commanded boardrooms and shaken the hands of presidents, sat hunched in the back of the vehicle, utterly powerless. He held Maya's hand, his daughter's hand, so tightly his knuckles were white. "Stay with me, Lily. Stay with me," he prayed, his voice breaking. The paramedic worked frantically, applying pressure to the wound on Maya's shoulder. "BP is dropping. She's losing too much blood. Driver, step on it." Robert stared at the blood soaking the stretcher. It was the same blood that ran through his veins. For 20 years, he had been a walking ghost, haunting his own life, believing his heart had turned to ash in a cabin fire. Now, the miracle he dared not hope for was bleeding out before his eyes. At Seattle General Hospital, the doors burst open. A team of doctors in scrubs swarmed the gurney. "Male, 60s, shock?" a nurse asked, looking at Robert's pale face and blood-stained tuxedo. "No, I'm fine," Robert roared, finding his command voice. "Save her. She is my daughter. Do whatever it takes." As they wheeled her into surgery, the doors swung shut, leaving Robert alone in the sterile, fluorescent hallway. He collapsed onto a plastic chair, putting his head in his hands. Meanwhile, across the city at the 12th Precinct, the atmosphere was very different. Beatrice sat in a cold, metal interrogation room. Her crimson gown was torn, her makeup smeared, and her wrists were handcuffed to the table. The diamonds had been stripped from her neck and placed in an evidence bag. She looked small, vicious, and cornered. Detective Miller entered the room. He was a veteran cop who had seen everything, and he looked at Beatrice with open contempt. He slammed a file onto the table. "You have the right to remain silent," Miller said, sitting down. "But honestly, Beatrice, I don't think silence is going to help you. We have 50 witnesses who saw you stab that girl. We have the audio recording of you conspiring to fake DNA results. And we have Thomas Thorne." Beatrice lifted her chin, trying to summon her old arrogance. "Thomas is a senile old fool. He's lying. I want my lawyer." "Your lawyer isn't coming," Miller said with a grim smile. "We froze your assets an hour ago, Mrs. Sterling. Or should I call you Ms. Vance? Since your marriage to Robert was based on fraud, the state is annulling it. You don't have access to the Sterling fortune anymore. You'll be assigned a public defender." Beatrice's eyes widened in horror. "You can't do that. I am Beatrice Sterling." "Not anymore," Miller leaned in. "And here is the interesting part. Your son, Chad, he's in the next room, and he is singing like a canary. He told us everything about the nursing home payments to Thomas. He told us about the plan to poison Robert slowly with sedatives. He says it was all your idea. He claims he was a victim of your manipulation." "That ungrateful little brat!" Beatrice shrieked, slamming her fists on the table. "I did everything for him. I killed for him." The room went silent. Beatrice froze, realizing what she had just said. Detective Miller smiled, a predatory glint in his eyes. "You killed for him? Are we talking about the cabin fire 20 years ago?" Beatrice clamped her mouth shut, but it was too late. The confession was recorded. Back at the hospital, 4 hours passed. Every minute felt like a year to Robert. Sebastian, the PI, arrived with coffee, sitting silently beside him. Finally, the surgeon emerged. He looked exhausted. "Mr. Sterling?" Robert shot up. "Is she?" "She's stable," the doctor said. The knife missed the subclavian artery by a fraction of an inch. She lost a lot of blood, and there is significant muscle damage, but she is going to live. She's strong. Robert let out a sob of relief, collapsing into Sebastian's arms. She's alive. She's alive. He walked into the recovery room. Maya looked pale against the white sheets, tubes running into her arm, but her chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. Robert pulled a chair to her bedside. He gently touched the lightning bolt birthmark on his own arm, then looked at hers, hidden beneath the bandages. "I'm sorry," he whispered to her sleeping form. "I'm so sorry I didn't protect you then. But I swear on my life, Lily, no one will ever hurt you again." 6 months later. The trial of Beatrice Vance and Chad Vance was the most watched event in Washington state history. The courtroom was packed. Reporters from every major network lined the back walls. Maya sat in the front row, dressed in a simple but elegant navy suit. Her shoulder had healed, leaving a scar she wore with pride. Next to her sat Robert, looking 10 years younger. The grey pallor was gone, replaced by a healthy tan. He held his head high, his hand resting protectively on the back of Maya's chair. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Harrison entered. She was a woman known for her zero-tolerance policy on white-collar crime. She took her seat and looked down at the defendants. Beatrice and Chad looked like shadows of their former selves. They wore orange jumpsuits. Beatrice's hair had gone grey, the platinum dye grown out, leaving her looking haggard. Chad was shaking, chewing his fingernails until they bled. The prosecutor, a sharp man named Mr. Stone, began his closing statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Stone said, pacing before the box, "greed is a common motive. But what we have seen here is not just greed. It is pure evil. This woman, Beatrice Vance, orchestrated the murder of Eleanor Sterling and her infant daughter. When that failed, she spent 20 years living a lie, spending a fortune that wasn't hers, and abusing the very man she claimed to love." Stone pointed at Maya, and when the rightful heir returned, not seeking money but seeking her father, Beatrice Vance tried to finish what she started 20 years ago. She tried to plunge a knife into the heart of a young woman who had already lost everything. He turned to Chad, and her son, Chad Vance, a man who was happy to go along with murder as long as it bought him sports cars and a life of leisure. He drugged his stepfather. He conspired to hide the truth. The jury didn't take long. Less than 2 hours later, they returned. "We find the defendant, Beatrice Vance, guilty on all counts," the foreman read. "First-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, fraud, embezzlement, and assault with a deadly weapon." Beatrice let out a wail, slumping onto the table. "We find the defendant, Chad Vance, guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, and fraud." Judge Harrison adjusted her glasses and looked at Beatrice. "Beatrice Vance," the judge said, her voice cutting through the sobs. "You are a danger to society. You have shown no remorse, only anger that you were caught. I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Furthermore, all assets hidden in your offshore accounts have been seized and will be returned to the Sterling estate." "No!" Beatrice screamed as the bailiffs grabbed her. "I am rich! You can't do this to me! Robert! Robert, help me!" Robert didn't even blink. He looked at her with eyes of stone. "Goodbye, Beatrice." "And you, Chad Vance," the judge continued, "you are sentenced to 25 years in the state penitentiary." "Mom made me do it," Chad cried as he was cuffed. "It's not fair." Maya watched them being dragged away, kicking and screaming. She didn't feel joy. She felt a heavy weight lifting off her chest. The monsters were gone. The nightmare was over. As they walked out of the courthouse, the paparazzi swarmed them. "Miss Sterling! Miss Sterling! How does it feel to be the heiress of the year? What will you do with the money?" Maya stopped. She looked at the cameras. She stepped up to the microphones, her voice steady and clear. "My name is Lily Sterling," she said. "But for 20 years I was Maya Bennett. I was a waitress. I scrubbed floors. I worried about electricity bills. I know what it means to be invisible." She looked at her father, who nodded encouragingly. "I'm not going to buy yachts," she said. "I'm going to make sure that no one else has to be invisible. Justice was served today. Now, it's time for kindness." A week after the trial, a black Rolls-Royce pulled up to the curb of the Rusty Spoon diner. It was raining again, just like that day 6 months ago. The neon sign was flickering, the S in Spoon completely burnt out. Inside, Stan was yelling at a new waitress. "You dropped a fork! That comes out of your pay! You think money grows on trees?" The bell chimed. Stan spun around, ready to yell at a customer. "We're busy. Sit yourself." He froze. Maya stood there, but she wasn't wearing her stained apron. She was wearing a tailored trench coat and Italian leather boots. Behind her stood Robert Sterling and 2 men in suits. "Maya?" Stan stammered. He wiped his greasy hands on his pants. "I saw the news. Look, about what happened. I was just under a lot of stress. You know how it is. No hard feelings?" Maya looked around the diner. She looked at the peeling paint, the dirty floors, and the terrified look on the young waitress's face. "Actually, Stan, there are hard feelings," Maya said calmly. "Now wait a minute." Stan backed up. "You can't do anything to me. I own this place." "Not anymore." The man in the suit stepped forward. "I represent the Sterling Real Estate Group. We just bought the building this morning from your landlord, and we bought the business loan debt you owe to the bank." Stan's face went white. "What?" "We are calling in the debt, Stan," Maya said. "Immediately." "I can't pay that," Stan squeaked. "Then you're bankrupt," Maya said. "Pack your things. You're fired." Stan looked at Robert, begging, "Mr. Sterling, please. A billionaire like you doesn't care about a greasy spoon diner." "I care about how people treat my daughter," Robert said coldly. "Get out." Stan grabbed his coat and ran out the back door, disappearing into the rain, jobless and ruined, just as he had left Maya months ago. Maya turned to the young waitress who was trembling by the counter. She was a girl of maybe 19, looking exhausted. "What's your name?" Maya asked gently. "Chloe," the girl whispered. "Well, Chloe," Maya smiled, "how would you like a raise and a scholarship?" "What?" "I'm turning this place into a non-profit community kitchen," Maya announced. "Free meals for the homeless, job training for people who need a second chance, and you're going to be the manager, if you want it, with a full salary and benefits." Chloe burst into tears. "Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you." Later that afternoon, Maya and Robert visited the Oasis Gardens senior living community. It was a 5-star facility, with gardens, a pool, and private chefs. In the sunroom, Nana Rose sat in a comfortable armchair, knitting. She looked healthier than she had in years. The stress of the cheap, state-run home was gone. "Maya," Nana Rose beamed, dropping her knitting needles. "Hi, Nana." Maya hugged her, burying her face in the familiar scent of lavender. "How are you liking the new room?" "It's like a palace," Nana Rose whispered. "But are you sure we can afford this?" "We can, Nana," Robert said, stepping forward. He took the old woman's hand. "Thank you. Thank you for taking care of her when I couldn't. You are the reason she is such a wonderful woman." Nana Rose patted Robert's cheek. "She has your eyes, you know, but she has her mother's heart." That evening, Robert and Maya sat on the balcony of the Sterling estate, watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. The sky was a canvas of purple and gold. They sat in comfortable silence, sipping tea. "I still can't believe it," Robert said softly. "I wake up every morning afraid it's a dream." "It's real, Dad," Maya said. Robert rolled up his sleeve, revealing the lightning bolt mark. Maya did the same. They placed their arms side by side. The marks were identical mirrors of each other. "You know," Robert said, "the doctors say it's a genetic pigmentation anomaly. A rare, hereditary trait." Maya smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "I know, but I like the story Mum told me better." "Which one?" "That we were struck by magic," Maya said. "That the lightning bolt means we can survive the storm, no matter how dark it gets." Robert kissed the top of her head. "We did survive the storm, Lily. And look at the view now." The wind blew gently through the garden, rustling the leaves where a young girl had once escaped into the night. But there was no fear now, only peace. The billionaire and the waitress had found their way home. What a roller coaster of emotions! From being kicked out into the rain to owning the empire, Maya proved that the truth always finds a way to the surface. Beatrice and Chad thought they could bury the past, but they forgot one thing. You can't hide a storm. Maya's birthmark wasn't just a scar, it was a map back to her father. Justice was served, the villains are behind bars, and Stan finally got a taste of his own medicine. It's the kind of hard karma we all love to see. If you loved seeing Beatrice get what she deserved, hit that like button right now. It really helps the channel. What would you do if you found out you were a secret heir to $1 billion fortune? Would you forgive the people who doubted you? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. We post new dramas every week. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.